right, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. My name is Katie Carter. I am the emergency response meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Wakefield. I know that most of you are probably familiar, but also this link may have gotten forwarded out, which is totally fine. This is really intended for members of the VEST and partners, but it is just a statewide situational overview of the week ahead and what we can expect. And because we are on the GoTo platform, which is a little bit different from most of the other VEST meetings and things that we do have, it is a little bit different in the way that we can communicate and get questions. So I have my microphone, but everyone else is muted by default, and I can't unmute anyone, or I suppose maybe I can, but the way that we are taking questions, if you happen to have any, is through the question in the chat function. So if you just submit a question, then we can get to those at the very end. But we have a lot going on this week, and what we have, at least starting this evening and heading into tomorrow, first and foremost, is a wind advisory that has been issued and will go into effect for Virginia Beach due to some pretty gusty winds. And we have several coastal lows that we are tracking, along with Category 5 Hurricane Melissa. So we'll cover all of it and the impacts to us here in Virginia. So starting off with that wind advisory, it's not in effect right now. We'll start to see winds increasing throughout the course of the day today, but that wind advisory doesn't really get into effect until late tonight, and it will be with us through the day tomorrow. Now, technically, the advisory is just for Virginia Beach because they're the ones that are going to hit that advisory criteria, but that doesn't mean that our other coastal locations are not going to be seeing a pretty breezy day really throughout the course of today and tomorrow. They just won't technically hit that advisory criteria. So the wind advisory here has sustained northeast winds of about 25 to 35 miles per hour tonight and tomorrow, and we could be seeing gusts up to 50 miles per hour and maybe a little bit higher than that just offshore. On top of that, there's also a high surf advisory just due to the conditions. We have some pretty rough marine conditions as well, but if you happen to be at the beach, a little bit cool day for that, but near shore breaking waves 8 up to 11 feet during this high surf advisory. And that's the same time frame as our wind advisory as well. We could be seeing some minor beach erosion as well. So here's a look at what we have for our weather pattern. So a series of coastal storms that are going to be impacting us. And today you see the low is kind of right along the Florida, Georgia, and into the South Carolina line, spreading rain all the way up actually into the far western part of Virginia already. So we will be seeing rain chances increasing across generally along and south of I-64 for this storm here for today and into Tuesday. And as that storm lifts off the coast, it is going to have some wraparound rain and moisture on the backside. And just like today's rain chances, most of it is going to remain south of I-64 with just very light showers possible on the north side of 64. Wednesday, kind of dreary conditions will be in between systems. You see our next system, that one's actually coming from the plains, and it has a whole lot of rain associated with it. So this is actually going to be more of our bigger rainmaker and a lot more widespread across the whole state. So Wednesday, we do have the chance for some excessive rainfall outlooks, particularly west of Charlottesville, and then that rain chance, the heavier rain chance, shifts to the north on Thursday. And then Friday, good news for trick-or-treaters. It is looking pretty nice, although a little bit cool for Friday. So here's a look at the excessive rainfall outlook. I skipped today because even though we do have a little bit of rain in the forecast today, we don't have any sort of excessive rainfall outlook. Same with tomorrow. But then the next system for Wednesday and Thursday, you see west of Charlottesville under a marginal risk. So that means that there is the chance for periods of heavy rainfall, possibly leading to some very isolated instances of flash flooding, although that should be pretty low on the scale, but definitely some periods of heavy rainfall Wednesday. And then as that system shifts off coast on Thursday, you see extreme portions of northern Virginia up to Alexandria, DC, Maryland, and beyond. Also a marginal risk come Thursday. What are we looking at in terms of rainfall? So you can really see that the heavy amounts of rain are going to stay south of 64, just as I mentioned. So how much? About 1.5 to 2 inches through early Thursday morning. And then you'll see that bullseye of that sort of light orange and even darker orange. A few areas could be seeing upwards of 2 to 3 inches, or maybe a little bit higher than 3 inches south and southwest of the Roanoke area. So that's what we can expect over the next few days. And then taking a step back and really looking at the whole week. So this, of course, encompasses the storm that we're seeing today and tomorrow. And then the middle of the week here, a pretty good, healthy amount of rain. You know, we've been seeing drought conditions. We absolutely need this beneficial rain. So hopefully we can see our drought conditions improve at least a little bit when we do get this rainfall. So an active week ahead, widespread, about 1 to 3 inches of rainfall is what we can expect statewide. Locally higher amounts certainly possible, and flash flooding threat, again, pretty limited. We only have a few marginal threats for flash flooding. Just our ground is dry, so it can take a lot of rainfall. So that's good for us. Getting back to the winds, even outside of the wind advisory in Virginia Beach, you can see that it's going to be a pretty gusty period over the next few days, with tomorrow being the strongest of the wind gusts. Those northeasterly winds going pretty good, 25 to 35 miles per hour, but gusts up to 50, again, under the advisory. And then they start to lessen as we get into Wednesday a little bit, but notice even on Wednesday, it's going to be pretty strong winds with our next system arriving. In terms of tropical weather, Hurricane Melissa has really intensified. It blew up overnight. It's now a Category 5 storm, 160 miles per hour. Now, technically, it's still moving westward very slowly at 3 miles per hour, but you can see the track here with the error cone. It's expected to make a northeasterly turn here and move over Jamaica as well as eastern Cuba as a major hurricane, and then diminishing slightly, still going to be a hurricane as it moves over the southeast Bahamas, and then eventually off into the North Atlantic. Now, this is not expected to impact the Commonwealth, so not in that sense. However, it is going to add to just the general swell that we're expecting, and along with the weather that we have just in general with our coastal low and our other storm, it's going to kind of all just combine to give us the potential for some tidal flooding. So today it's not really a risk, maybe just some nuisance flooding in the tidal Potomac and in the Upper Bay. But starting tomorrow and going really throughout most of the rest of the week, we're going to be seeing widespread minor flooding right along the coast. So our low-lying areas immediately along the coastline, those most vulnerable. And then you see some red on the map, and that's in the James, and then toward kind of the Lynn Haven area on Tuesday for some locally moderate flooding. Now, moderate flooding means up 1 to about 2 feet of inundation is going to be expected. So not to the extent of our last flooding event, but certainly going to be seeing some impacts there. And it just continues and spreads into the Upper Bay as well for Wednesday and Thursday, where we both have minor and moderate flooding for some of our locations. Now, I'm going to send this out. I actually haven't sent out the briefing. I wrapped it up just before we started here. So look for this in your inbox and a better view of this where you can, I know that this is just a lot of information, very small, but giving you just kind of that high level snapshot of what we are looking at. So you can see our specific locations that are going to be seeing the moderate flooding here in this tide table, starting with Tuesday afternoon and evenings high tide, and then continuing Wednesday afternoon and evening, and then even into Thursday morning. So that's something to be mindful of. And then as we do track Melissa, we'll have to see how this may impact potentially into, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, potentially. This is just an overview of some of our locations. Again, tidal Potomac. Generally, our tidal anomaly is going to increase throughout the week, but most of those locations staying in the minor, but you see Potomac River at Louisetta definitely getting into the moderate flood stage by Thursday. So we'll keep track of that. And the lower Bay and into the James River at Sewell's Point, along with Chesapeake Bay near Yorktown, and then even the James River at Jamestown. You can see that that location in particular is forecast to get into the moderate flood stage by Thursday. Continuing on with the lower James, this is the Pagan River at Smithfield, Lynn Haven, and then Chesapeake Bay near Kiptopeke. These locations going to be in the higher moderate or higher minor stage, or even into the moderate flood stage. And then the ocean, actually not quite as bad as you may think. You might think that the ocean locations are just generally going to be higher, but it really all depends on the winds. And this profile here, Oyster, Virginia, along with Chincoteague and the Atlantic coast, is actually going to stay in the action and into the minor flood stage. And then stepping back and just taking a look at things on a higher level, temperature-wise, we are definitely feeling like fall. At least we don't have any crazy swings, but it's 50s and 60s for much of the week ahead. Thursday going to be a little bit warmer. We'll see some 60s returning briefly. And just kind of due to the added cloud cover that we have due to the several systems, especially overnight, that's going to help us stay away from frost and freeze conditions for most of the week, with those overnight lows staying above freezing, at least for the most part. And then our probability of precipitation forecast, this is welcomed during our just current drought status. We have many chances for rain in the week ahead, with the most widespread rain when we're talking about a statewide level really being Wednesday and Thursday, where a good part of the Commonwealth going to be seeing rainfall. And again, just another slide with Melissa, and that is it, pending any questions. Thanks again for attending. And just as I'm waiting to see if we have any questions, wanted to put another plug that this is going to be happening every Monday at 10 a.m. right here. And you are welcome to forward that registration link to any colleagues or partners that you think could benefit from a situational awareness weather brief such as this.